welcome to another Ouchcast with a special guest, Isaac. I'm just kidding. Say hi, Isaac.
Hello.
And then we also have with us, as usual, the lovable, born on 4th of July, looking Vietnam-looking mofo, Enrique.
Yo, how's it going, guys?
Oh, look at you, raspy in the morning.
It's that season. Sexy voices has come out.
It's invisible penis season.
You
Cough,
are
cough.
disgusting.
Cough, 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 cough.
Cough, cough, cough. Like cough, cough, cough,
Cough,
cough.
cough. It is chilly in here today.
It is.
I like it though. I think I've talked about this before, but what do you prefer, the cold or the heat?
Cold.
You?
Cold.
Yeah, cold, right? Yeah, me too. Like, I can't stand the heat. I'm sorry.
Well, there's nothing you can do to get away from it other than maybe jump in the pool.
Skin. Yeah, you can't tear off your skin. Yeah.
Yeah. So like imagine a hot night in your room.
No, fuck that.
No, imagine like a hot night where you if you don't have an AC, you're gonna do nothing but sweat it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like you can take off all the clothes and you can take the showers, but you're still gonna be uncomfortable. Where if you're cold, mind you, most cold weather, you can wear sweaters, jackets, bundled up. Now, I know that there's a cold that you can reach that nothing helps. I mean, I've heard about it. I've never experienced it myself because I don't live anywhere where, it goes below 60, maybe 50. We're lucky.
Yeah.
But
California.
yeah, but, like places where there's snow and everything, yes.
I would always want it. Like, I've always told everyone, like, I want to live somewhere cold where there's snows all the time and stuff. And then they're like, no, you don't. And I'm like, yeah, I do. I run hot.
Yeah.
I'm always hot. My wife calls me a radiator because I'm always super hot. But I don't know. I digress. How you doing? Everything good?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Like life just keeps on going. And I find it very interesting. Like, we're towards the end of the year. For me, like I always think in terms of school years, and my school year begins in August. And right now we're halfway through it since we're still in November. But
Damn, November already.
yeah, it sort of just all happens in the blink of an eye.
I mean, December. Damn, December already. You get it? No?
I get it.
Okay.
I don't know, man. I'm kind of slow. Sorry. Like I got mocos coming out of my nose, and you got
allergies.
I'm just waiting to get deported by Trump, and
Did you get your ticket already?
What?
You didn't get your ticket already?
Nah, I haven't gotten it yet, but I'm sure it's coming. The dystopian future that we all voted for.
I didn't vote for him.
Yeah.
Don't
It's so
blame me. I
funny.
didn't
Like
vote.
I found it interesting, like the numbers that have come out, like of Latino men and black men who've like yeah, Trump, he's down. And I mean,
That's machismo coming through. That's what it is.
I've heard a lot of postmortems on all of it, and I wonder, like, the picture's still not clear. Everybody has different opinions about it. I mean, obviously, there's people who say that he had a better narrative, and other people who say that the Democrats had they didn't have any narrative, and
They didn't. To be honest, they didn't. They had no plan.
right.
Their plan was, look at him, he's terrible, vote for us instead. That was their plan.
Yeah.
That's it. But
Yeah, well, they voted on like we're a change and we're going to make everything happy. And I there was this one commentator that I heard that the message should have been like more angry, because it worked for Trump, where when he lost, he stayed angry, and he continued to build this idea that one, that things were stolen and things were better before, and so ultimately that resonated with people, I guess. I mean, I still don't fully understand it, so I'm not even gonna go all punditry on it, other than just to say that I voted. I didn't like the way it ended, but I mean, it's here, and now we're gonna figure out what happens the next 4 years. It'll be interesting, to say the
it'll
least.
fly by. It'll be done quick. Slow and painless death.
Did you see that? Do you watch Jon Stewart, The Daily Show?
I do, but I haven't watched. I watch clips.
So he did this episode, right, like pretty much the Monday right after, and he showed a map of America in I want to say it was 1984, either 1984 or 86. I forgot what voting year, but in it, the whole map, with the exception of one northern state, was red. And so he used that as a contrast, because right now the predominant visual of the election was how red the map of the U.S. looks right now, right, with only some bastions of blue. But back in '86, even California was red, like really red. And so, to see all of that, it's supposed to, like, his message was like, look, things are not forever. There's an impermanence. Give it time. You will, the things will change. I think what people are more afraid of now is just how right now the government is fully stacked in his favor, and how different he is in regards to people that have had this kind of power. People, you can argue and say that there's always been corruption. There's always been people with self-interest. That is, that is always been a thing. But the thing that makes Trump very interesting is that he is a very he doesn't hold back. You can really tell what he's thinking, and so because of that, he has a lot of mystery about him in how regards on one level. While on the other level, you have a lot of visuals of what he is. So ultimately,
do you hate Mexicans?
The answer is yes and no, apparently, because he hates the rapists that are coming in the thousands, but he loves the ones that voted for him.
That's racist!
Yeah.
So, and he hated the black kids in the Bronx, but he loves the ones that voted for him.
Are you a racist?
Yeah.
But I don't know. Who cares?
We'll outlive him. I lived through Reagan. I lived through Bush. I died a little with Clinton. But here I am. Moving on. Isaac, this is your fourth president term?
I think so.
How old are you again?
15.
15. So 15 years ago, you would have been around for George Bush Jr. Then you would have been around for Barack.
Yeah, Obama twice.
Yeah, and then Trump.
And Trump. Then Biden. Then Trump.
Wait a minute, what year were you born?
2009.
Oh, never mind. No, he was only Barack Obama. Barack Obama was voting in 2008.
Why.
Yeah, I don't know. My math is all weird, but yeah, no. 2008 was Barack Obama. So you've only had 3 presidents: Barack Obama, Trump, Biden,
and then now Trump again.
and now Trump. So forth. Good.
Man, that's
Congratulations, bro.
Congratulations. I lived through Carter, Reagan, Bush Sr., Clinton, Bush Jr., Al Gore. No, I'm just kidding. Who's that? Who's after? Who do we say? Oh yeah, Obama, which I never liked, and then Trump, then Biden, Trump.
Right.
Damn, that's crazy. But enough politics. Enough of that shit. How you doing? Everything good? Ready for the holidays?
No.
This is close to the last episode for the podcast, dude.
I'm excited for Thanksgiving only because, like, my family sucks at it, but in my classroom, we go all out.
Uh-huh.
We bring the tables together, we put placemats, everybody makes food. We
You
all
dress up your students as pilgrims and Indians.
I will. That's a great idea. So I'm gonna have one side of kids dressed up like American Indians and or Native Americans, and then I'm gonna have another of pilgrims, and I'm just gonna have them fight for their food.
That's a good idea.
Because that's the spirit of Thanksgiving, right?
Did you ever see Monty Python's Flying Circus, the original?
Yeah, of course.
If I remember correctly, they did something similar like that, where it's like they reenacted something. It was okay. There was a skit where they were talking about this like great old historical event, and there was going to be a reenactment, right? And the women's club was going to reenact it, and supposedly like, oh yeah, it's this great story about morals and the historical and all these things. And then they're like, okay, so the reenactment begins, and then all of a sudden you just see a bunch of group of women, just like men dressed as women, go into a mud pile and start fighting each other. And that was the reenactment. That's what I picture you with your Native Americans and indigenous and pilgrims fighting each other for food.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna have the kids fight for their piece of the ham that we're gonna make for them and the food that we're gonna spread out and say thank you.
A spam turkey.
Yeah, pretty much.
We actually do Thanksgiving in our house. We didn't do it a couple of years. There was one year where Isaac here went with his aunt to Cancun for the holidays. So we canceled Thanksgiving in our house because it didn't feel right celebrating without the whole family. And we went to Golden Corral. That was one of the best Thanksgivings I ever had. going to Golden Corral. But I guess it wasn't just me because everyone was there. It was really packed.
Golden Corral is dope. I've only been to it twice though, but each time I go, it's great.
It's great, man.
Yeah.
It's my favorite is their bourbon Kentucky bourbon chicken.
Oh, they still do that?
That thing's great. And then their fish sticks are really good.
Hey, do you remember Claim Jumpers?
Yeah, I remember Clean Jumpers.
They used to have this one item that went away many, many years ago, but I still I miss it. It's the, well, let's see if you can remember. Well, no, guess what it is.
I don't remember what Clean Jumpers was. I've been there like a few times, but it's been so long. Are they still around, Clean Jumpers?
I don't think so. I haven't seen them, but they had, it was a Jack Daniels apple Jack Daniels bourbon chicken or something like that.
That's the same thing as the one at Golden Corral, except it's not Jack Daniels and it's not apple. It's just regular bourbon.
Yeah, well, it wasn't bourbon. It was Jack Daniels apple chicken.
Whiskey.
So basically, like, it was a half chicken. It was quartered, quartered is when they cut it into 4 pieces, or I think they split it. Right, and they would put stuffing and mashed potato, but it was clearly like an apple sauce made out of Jack Daniels. It was incredible. I used to love that. That was like my favorite thing. And then it went away many, many years ago, and I would always go back and ask them, and it never came back, as far as I know.
Well, remember Chili's? What were they famous for? I want my baby back, baby. Chili's barbecue grills and barbecue sauce. They don't have baby back ribs anymore. They're not. They have like a whole different menu.
And even though they still like sing the song and stuff like that.
I want my baby. I don't know. It's weird. Or the one I got to pour one out for my homie is Isaac's favorite restaurant, TGIF. They just went under. They're done.
Are they really?
Yeah,
so many
they're
restaurants
gone.
have gone.
They're gone. They're not complete. I think there's like 2 or 3 left, but they're going to close down almost all of them. Just like Big Lots, they're almost all gone now. It's sad.
Well, too bad. So sad. So long.
That's what she said.
That's what she said.
Sorry. Anyway.
They're still going to be having their wings in the stores though, right?
I don't know. I don't know what the outcome with the frozen food for TGIF is, but I know that like 90% of the restaurants are closing down, which totally sucks for you. I mean, I never really liked it, but you liked it.
I like their wings. That's why. They're good.
There's a lot of Applebee's is combining with IHOP, I think, and they're doing like these combined restaurants, random stuff, strange times. And then like we were talking last time, where Tommy's, now the burgers are so small, it's just like recession and reduction and shrinkflation and all that.
Chili in it.
Yeah, it's no fun eating out anymore.
No,
so expensive and so. I just like staying home and watching things on Netflix or Hulu and all that. Dude, have you been following the Dragon Ball Daima?
No. I want
to talk to somebody about Dragon Ball Daima.
You and I had this text recently where you asked me about it, and I told you that right now, like, Dragon Ball is just so big now. I don't know where to even start. Like, I tried watching when it came back, I think Dragon Ball Super.
Yeah.
I tried watching
which was great, but
it looked great, but I know that initially you have like Beerus or whatever his name was, and then he comes down, he beats up Bulma, they get into a fight, everybody, and then turns out like later on it goes into this intergalactic multi-dimensional war, and
they did the multi-wars.
I couldn't keep up with it. So speaking of that, I ended up just going back and started rewatching Robotech, and I watched Gantz, and then I started watching My Hero Academia. And initially, like the shonen stuff, other than Dragon Ball and maybe Ramna back in the day, Bleach.
Well, Ramna's back.
Yes.
And I saw the first episode and I was intrigued. I can see potential in it. I still prefer the original 80s version, but I see potential in it and I'm going to watch it.
So, I mean, to the point that I'm making though, is I've watched all of those things, but shonen kind of like overall, like I found myself getting mad at sort of like the shonen tropes. Like, you always have the boy who is like humble, but like also very shy, who has greatness in him, but he can't quite articulate his greatness. And then he has that rival friend / frenemy who like hates him for no real reason other than to hate him. The only purpose is to drive like competition between them, like that sort of thing. I found myself getting so mad the first season of My Hero Academia, but dang, did it get good.
I did see the first season of My Hero Academia. My son Isaac got into anime. I showed him anime. He was really into it for a summer.
Okay.
And then he just outgrew it.
Yeah.
But
you're gonna go back to it, bro. Sorry, hate to tell you, because I outgrew it for a bit, and then you went back to it.
We watched a bunch of
No,
stuff.
I tell you this all the time. I didn't outgrow it. It was just My Hero Academia. That one got boring for me.
How far into it did you get?
2 seasons, I think we saw.
I don't remember.
Okay, so I can tell you right now, I'm in the 6th season, about to finish it, and if you remember, there was the League of Villains, like the most generic name, and initially you're thinking like these guys are chumps, but they get stronger. They get really stronger.
Akatsuka strong or
dude, they get stupidly OP. Like you finally get you introduced to like All Might's antithesis. His name is One for All or All for One. All for One. And then he ends up becoming the puppet of I'm trying to remember. I've been watching anime for 20 plus years of my life, but I could never remember names of Japanese names. They're just so difficult for me to remember.
I'd say it was closer to 30, 40 years plus.
Yeah, it's been it's been way longer. I've been watching anime since I was like 5 or 6 in one way or the other.
Well, yeah, because he started off with, let's say, like everyone else from our generation, Voltron and Robotech, right? AKA Macross.
Yeah. So, if I go, like, I'm looking at a list of different animes and from back in the 80s. I mean, dude, Macross / Robotech, like for me, it was Robotech.
Mine was Voltron, yeah.
Robotech was the one that really I would go home from school. I would run home to catch it because it would come on. I want to say at the time it was on channel 13 here in LA. KCOP, I think, was the name of the channel. And I would run home, dude, because it would come on at either 3:30 or 4. I forget what time it was. But oh my goodness, I had no idea that people could die in cartoons. Like where in G.I. Joe, it never failed that you would have these like blue and red lasers just shooting right across, and nobody would get hit unless you were a robot. And even then, when there was explosions, you could always see the guys jump away. Or if there's like a tank, you could always see the 2 guys jump out of the tank, and then it would explode because they just happened to have like that prescience of knowing that their tank was about to blow up.
Yeah.
Or when the helicopter or plane would explode, there would always be people jumping out the second before it blew up. So nobody died. And that was just normal for me. But in Robotech, dude, like that first episode when the Centrati start invading Macross City, you're just seeing like people standing around. All of a sudden they get engulfed in flames, and I'm thinking like, they're gonna be okay, right? They're not.
It's funny also when they Americanized Go Lions and they made it into Voltron.
Yeah.
And then who was it? Lance in the original dies, and then on this one it's like, oh, I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm okay.
I'm just gonna retire for a little bit, okay?
And we always expected him to come back. Did he ever come back? I think he did in some ghost way. I don't know. I don't remember.
No, what they did was there was a character design for Voltron 2, which was another anime, where they said that was like his cousin or some shit like that, and that was the connect. It was just really bad if you think about it, but hey man, it works. It introduced Americans to anime, our generation to anime. Now anime is older than that. I read somewhere that it was either like the first one was considered 1907, a small little like a 10-second anime.
Yeah.
And some of the people in 1917 was when they said that was the first one, which was I forgot the name of the old spoon or the old something. It was a small 4-minute clip. But anime as we know it, I know took off with Astro Boy. Is that correct? Is that something that I can probably say that the whole mecha thing?
I can say that, yeah. Astro Boy would have probably been the first, like the one that arguably looks and still looks anime. The big eyes, the kind of introduction of a robot, the science fiction aspect, the speed lines that became predominant, the sort of low like the low animation, but very stylized visuals. A lot of that was all found in Astro Boy.
Yeah.
But later on you would have the things that really started like making anime where most of the tropes, particularly in the 70s and 80s, was a lot of the Sentai shows from the 60s, the hero groups started showing up in cartoon form in one way or the other.
Yeah. I can see a lot of the super robot mech stuff could start popping up. Messenger Z.
Yeah.
Voltron, Go Line, stuff like that.
So people often like
Lupin 3.
Yeah, they conflate.
But that's actually detective, but whatever.
Well, people conflate the two things. Like there's big robot anime and then there's mecha anime, and they're not the same thing.
Not the same at all.
So like the big robot anime, like for example, there's a show, dude, I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called Ideon.
No.
Okay, so Ideon was made by the guy who made Gundam, and it was his first show. Dude, Ideon is amazing, man. But
I tried to get into Gundam. I couldn't get into it.
I that's understandable. It's not an easy one to get into. I think it pays off over time, but it's very heavy on like the anti-war stuff, and there's a lot of like kind of inconsistencies. I mean, come on, you have like basically a bunch of amateurs being given access to the a super classified ship, and suddenly they're able to manage it. Even when they get to Earth, they somehow find a way for them to still continue to crew it, and it was a way to kind of cram in the tropes from the super robot or the big robot, which was always meant to be somewhat family oriented in one way or the other, where like even the robots themselves have like a either parental or maternal instinct. There's always like a spirit in them, in which their means is always to protect. So take Messenger until later, like I think they changed it, but initially there's like a kind of innate spirit in Messenger that protects like not only the pilot but people around it. So even when he's not on there, it'll like the hand will come and block a laser, and it's like, oh, you.
Voltron did it later too.
Yes, they did. Yeah. Now I never saw it I don't remember seeing it.
It's not the original. It's in Go Line. It's not in there.
Okay,
but it's on the like the later ones, like the what is it, the Adventures in the 3D universe or whatever, and the Lion Force. What is it that they had all the spin-offs and the remake from the Avatar people. It's all on there where it's like, oh, there's something spiritual about Voltron. What is the first anime that you remember? The one that got you started?
For me, oh dude, there was a video store that I would go to. This was when I was like 6 or 7 years old. And there would be these, the big boxed like VHSs you would see.
The puffy ones.
There were two boxes that always stood out for me. One was Captain Harlock, right? It was this huge box, and it had this really cool looking kind of effeminate pirate with like a scar down his face. But I remember just being like really stricken by how like dynamic it looked, because he was in an action pose and it looked like he was about to jump or something. And I remember always looking at that box and wanting my dad to rent it. But do you remember how expensive it was to rent movies back then? And so it wasn't like you could just haphazardly say, oh, I'll take that. But one day I think there was a special, like rent 2 movies, get 1 free. So I got my dad to take that one home. And I remember just like not understanding it, but I loved it. Like either way, because it was visually cool. I remember he got into a sword fight with somebody, and I just remember how kind of cool it was, and he killed a person. And again, thinking like, oh man, people die in cartoons. That's cool.
Serial killer, dude.
Yeah. And so that was the first anime that I can think of. And then, but the one that really, really just kind of made me love anime was Robotech. Yeah. Robotech was it, because that then would later on lead into Voltron, but then later on would lead into Gunbusters and then of course Akira in 1988.
Oh, yeah, I remember Akira.
So so it from like right now looking back, it could almost seem like there's like this big span of years, but in reality it was maybe like 4 years removed, because for me Robotech would have been 1986, and then 3 years later that's when Akira
hit, yeah.
So in those 3 years, that was a very formative time. I mean, by then I already knew Dragon Ball existed. I couldn't watch it because it was not being played anywhere here in the States other than Mexico. But I knew of it and wanted it.
That's where I discovered it, Mexico, and I fell in love. But Isaac, what about you? I know that you're the new generation of anime, but like, what was the first anime? I don't remember what was the first one I taught you or I showed you.
No, I've been watching anime since before I met you. I'm pretty sure. It was either like Pokemon or Dragon Ball Z.
Okay.
Does Pokemon count?
Yeah, Pokemon is totally anime.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
It's hard to it's hard to discount its influence in anime culture now, but it's also easy to dismiss it because you think, well, everyone knows of it, so it must not be anime. Because I think in some way, for us, for the longest time, and particularly my generation and your dad's generation, we think of anime as being very special because it was very niche. But it's not niche anymore.
Not anymore. No.
It's very mainstream. People know of it. I mean, not everybody watches anime, but enough people watch it that it's a pretty common thing. And Pokemon is definitely a reason for that. I mean, Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball, all contributed, but Pokemon arguably is the most watched anime. Yeah, it's the most watched anime by moms and dads of kids who will never watch it.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Later on.
Yeah.
Then I think I want to say Pokemon. I used to watch that one all the time. And then I used to watch Dragon Ball Z with my tío.
Mm-hmm. That's a great one. Dragon Ball Z is one of my favorites. So
going back to like anime of the 80s, man, and people dying, and that's going to be a running theme in this because I think that
you're obsessed with death.
Well, you know what I'm obsessed with is sort of like us as kids wanting to see this sort of thing and why it was like super important. Like, dude, you have to remember, like, as much as like you can watch like shonen stuff, like, you know, for example, my Hero Academia, people die in that show, but not always, but they do. But dude, in 80s anime, when people die, there was no ambiguity.
No.
Like, I'll give you an example. In season, I'm going to give you a spoiler on My Hero Academia. So there's a character, her name is Miss Midnight. Remember, she's the really overly voluptuous teacher.
Yeah.
Well, she dies heroically in a big battle. But it's, you know, she dies. There's a lot of lead up to it. But at the same time, there's enough ambiguity that you think like, well, if she came back, you would understand it. But in 80s anime, if somebody died, they were ripped to shreds, or they would, like, their heads would blow off.
They would see them disintegrate or melt in front
there
of
was like, there was like no holding back. And I imagine there was some change in their, like, their laws for how they animate certain things. But I think in the 80s, there was a lot of, it was like the Wild West. They could do pretty much anything. And they did do almost anything, because your dad fought for me watching my first hentai, Urotsukidōji. Hate you for that, by the way.
Urotsukidōji 1 and Urotsukidōji 3.
But then, you know, when I look back on Devilman, I mean, dude, like, they're not that different, other than the fact that Urotsukidōji is purely about, like, it's purely about sex as a driving force in the demon world, and then there's this great story tapped on top of it, where Devilman has this great story that just happens to have a small sexual component every now and then that comes out. Now, there's the show that I mentioned earlier, it's called Space Runaway Ideon, and the guy's name was Yoshiyuki Tomino. Tomino is the guy who did Gundam, so he has a nickname. Tomino is Kill 'Em All Tomino. And the reason why is because in his anime, usually everybody dies, or most people die. Now, Ideon, dude, like, just like any, remember I said earlier about there being a family oriented aspect? Space Runner Ideon had a family aspect. You had little kids in this ship. Dude, there's this one scene where there's a big battle between the human race and this alien race that they've been being chased by, because the alien race wants to take back the Ideon, which is this sentient robot. And this robot's supposed to be like a god. It has god powers, and it doesn't look like a god, but it looks so cheesy, yet it's a godlike thing. At one point, this little kid is just standing there talking to his mom, and lasers are flying by, and all of a sudden his head just disappears, and the little body, it's a cute little body, just kind of tumbles over. And I remember seeing that and going like, oh my god, he's gonna be okay, right?
Yeah, he's gonna be okay, right?
No, and there was just a lot of that. So for me, for some reason, man, like, that sort of provocativeness of it just kept me interested and kept me going. I love that stuff.
For me, there was something about Voltron and the lore and the way that it looked, and you know, it wasn't during a time period that, for me, there was nothing like that on television. But looking back now as an adult, I'm like, yeah, there was a lot like that on television. Just back then, I just wasn't aware. You know, Spaceship Yamamoto kind of looked similar to it, and I just never realized it because I didn't watch it as a kid. But also back in the 80s, it wasn't common. You only had one channel, two channels that had cartoons, and they would only be from certain time to certain time. You had to fight for what you were going to watch. Like, oh no, I'm going to watch this instead of that. And usually it was a lot of Americanized either anime or just American cartoons. And then when Voltron came along, it just felt different. It felt foreign, yet familiar at the same time. and the lore was just really good. I mean, now looking back, when you hear the dialogue and you see that their lips don't match what they're saying, or it's like someone dies on screen and then, like I mentioned earlier, it's like, I'll be back, I'm just not feeling well, and you know, their body had disintegrated 2 scenes over. Or there's a freeze frame and it's like, oh no, I've been hit, but I'm okay, I'll be back. You could tell it's heavily censored, you know.
So if you think about like sort of like the way anime was released in the 80s, you know that we always got a bastardized version of it.
We always got it repackaged
because they always wanted to make it family friendly, and in some ways just kind of nulling and dulling like the stuff that made it good. So I was looking at some differences between, for example, Go Lion and Voltron, and you're right, dude. Like there were a lot of deaths that were written out. There were obviously name change, toned down for violence, altered plot elements. So essentially, if you watch Go Lion and you watch Voltron, they're 2 very different shows.
100%.
Now, I can tell you that Robotech and Macross, while they are different, they're actually not super different. Yeah. There's enough differences in it. Obviously, the names have been changed and Americanized. Like, for example, Rick Hunter in Robotech is named Hikaru. I forget his other name in Macross. Or Lisa Hayes, which is, you know, his love interest. Her name is Miya Hayase, I think, or Misa. So it sounds like Lisa, and Hayase, which sounds nothing like Hayes, but it's similar.
Hayase.
Other, you know, Hayes. There's other like, but what an interesting aspect I found. Okay, so I was always very curious about the relationship between Rick Hunter and his mentor, named Roy Fokker. Now, this blonde-haired guy looks nothing like Rick Hunter, but he would call him Big Brother. And when I was young, I was very confused by that. But I truly believe that was his brother. Even though in the dialogue, they make it clear that he used to fly for Rick Hunter's father's like flying circus thing. And that Rick Hunter was somewhat resentful that Roy Fokker left that like flying troop to pursue military service.
What a Fokker.
Now, but here's the part that I'm getting at, man. Like, what is the concept of Big Brother in Japan?
Sensei?
Senpai.
Senpai, yeah.
So that to me is very interesting because at a very young age, they couldn't call him senpai because nobody would know what that is. So they would say, that's my big brother. Why are you doing this, big brother? When now I know he's calling him senpai. And I find that very interesting. So stuff like that, while it's different in the American version of Robotech, isn't really in the spirit different. So I put it out there like, is that an alteration, or is that an adaptation done well? I don't know. I really love Robotech though, but there's a huge amount of people that like hate it for the fact that it's not Macross.
Yeah, I know.
And other reasons, by the way, we can get into.
Yeah, it's common to what's the term, territorialize or just basically just change, like Pokemon, for instance. In the original, there's a lot of Japanese food like onigiri in it. When they brought it to the States, they changed it. The onigiri became a hamburger bun. They reanimated it to put they superimposed a hamburger bun when Ash is eating onigiri.
Right, I remember that. I remember that.
And they do it all the time in a lot of animes where they rechange it. We could talk about Dragon Ball and how much they censored it from the original.
Can I ask though, like, I have a false memory, maybe, or maybe you can confirm it. I know that you said they changed it into a hamburger, but isn't there like some episodes where they kept? It's clearly the onigiri, but he called it a jelly donut.
Yes,
but it wasn't. You can tell that it was like that. It's like
it was different. Yeah,
it's like a triangle shape with the little black seaweed rectangle that holds it together at the bottom. Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, these jelly donuts are delicious," and I'm thinking that doesn't look like a jelly donut.
It was just because it was just so expensive to reanimate. So they did that a lot. It's kind of like I said, where they like back in the 80s, they would have an animation where someone would die or something, and they would just freeze frame it, and then there would be a narration, or like, "Don't worry, everybody, I'm okay. I'm just going to go over here for a minute." They would do that kind of thing, and it's like, dude, that's not how it originally was, but that's how they did it just to save time. Dragon Ball, the original one was very adult orientated. Like Oolong was a big pervert that loved women. And for the American, what was it? What was the name of that company? Pioneer Gold, I think it was. The ones that did the first dubbing.
I want to say, yeah, Pioneer Gold was the one.
They changed him from being a womanizer, like infatuated with women kind of pervert, to a greedy pig that was obsessed with money. So from him going to get Bulma's underwear. Instead, it was like he's gonna go get Bulma's money because she was rich, and they did a lot of that stuff where they reanimated things. It was like instead of him looking at, like when he wanted to go take a peek of Bulma because she was nude in her bed, and he would like they reanimated where he's like, I'm gonna go look at the Dragon Balls.
Yeah, I remember that. But he really lifts up her skirt, and you can see all of it. Yeah, dude, that part, finding out about that later, just shocks me to realize like how, like, because the fact is Goku was not a pervert. He was just like,
he was just innocent.
He was an innocent little kid who didn't know the ways of the world. But clearly, we can excuse it because, you know, we can look at it purely from like an in-universe aspect, but let's remember that these were old men writing and drawing these comics, so clearly there was a perverted aspect to it. And while we can say, oh no, Goku was innocent, but Goku's not real. The guys who wrote it, who drew it, you know, or one guy in this case, because it's an adaptation from the comic, obviously there's some weirdness there.
Yeah.
But let me get back to the dubbing aspect. I had this discussion recently. I went out with a friend that I hadn't seen in many years, and she and her daughter watch anime all the time. And she was telling me about some of the anime she watches, and I told her that I prefer watching dubbed because I want to see it. I want to see it and not have to read. And she like most purists, like just really got upset and told me like, no, I cannot watch dubbed because dubbing is bad. Now, I think once upon a time that's true. Dubbing was horrible.
It used to be back in the days. It used to be, not anymore.
But yeah, exactly. But I argue that now dubbing is as good, if not sometimes better.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Okay. I wholeheartedly agree. Me and Isaac have talked about this because there's certain things that we've preferred watching with subtitles. Demon Slayer, for instance. Was that one of them that we did?
Oh, yeah. That sounds so much better.
Yeah. But there's other ones where it's like, okay, Dragon Ball. I prefer it dubbed. I'm sorry. Goku's voice is like nails on a chalkboard to me.
Okay.
So I prefer. I mean, I'll watch it with subtitles and stuff, but I prefer it dubbed. I do. It's just my preference. Naruto, I can go either way with Naruto.
So let's stick on Dragon Ball for a moment, if we can. Now, wouldn't you argue though that that's just preference versus?
That's preference.
Because in terms of like Dragon Ball, because the dubbing versus the original, like, man, that voice is amazing. Like, even when I was a kid and I would hear that voice, and when he'd say the Kamehameha, and it just sounded so
is way better,
amazing and powerful. But they certainly got better about it with the dubbing. The guy who does the Goku's voice got so much better with it. But ultimately, that's a splitting hairs kind of situation there. But let's go farther back. Like in the early 90s, Ramna, one half, was dubbed. I love the dubbing in that. I think it
good. I thought it was well made.
But I've never compared it to the original Japanese in terms of script or dialogue, so I don't know how much has changed. I just know that I really love those voices. I love the voice of Ramna. I love the voice of the girl. I just it's so good. Now where I can go back and argue versus like where I think the Japanese is better, Akira, the movie.
Oh yeah.
My first exposure to Akira was the American version. I bought a bootleg VHS.
Yeah.
Loved the dubbing. Years later, though, I would see the Japanese version and thought like, oh man, this is better. Mm-hmm. This is so much better. So that's a point where preference didn't like really take over. And mind you, but to this day, though, I will still always watch dubbing. I will always watch dubbing because I really just want to watch it and not worry about the reading part.
It depends. I'm watching Dragon Ball Daima with subtitles because it comes out quicker that way than the dub. There hasn't been a dub version of Dragon Ball Daima.
Right.
It's all just subtitles right now, even the one on Netflix.
Okay.
But I watch it on Hulu because it's actually 2 episodes ahead.
So it's that good, then you don't care. You'll just like, forget it. I'm watching it.
I'm in.
Okay.
What was the Trigun, the last one, the remake? I watched the dub version. Didn't care for it. I prefer the subtitle version. They have both on Hulu.
Right.
And then we saw Dragon Ball Super, the movie, superheroes.
I wanted to watch it subbed, but Michael came.
Yeah,
so I had to watch it dubbed.
Yeah, my other son, my 9-year-old came, so we had to watch it dubbed for him. and it did lose something.
Okay.
The dubbing was off, and then now I own it, and yeah, it's still off. Like I saw the Japanese version way better.
Okay.
Way better.
So remind me about Trigun. What is Trigun about? Because I know it. I remember seeing it many years ago. I love the way it looks. The dude with the red coat and the gun. And I remember what's his name? Something the Gale.
Moloch the Gale.
Yeah, I had that. I have that figure.
The big one.
I have that big figure.
I had it. Mine broke.
No, I have him, like, he's still encased, but it got a little bit of water damage, and I tried to dry it out, so it's still in, I believe it's still in the box, and I put it away, but...
You gotta take that sucker out, man. It's gorgeous out of the box.
Is it?
I had it out of the box for years until...
I think I might end up doing that.
There was an earthquake and it broke.
Okay.
It happens to plastic, too.
Yeah.
Those figures, though, are amazing. Well, Trigun is about a planet. It depends. There's two different ones. There's the new one that I saw, which was pretty amazing. They do change the design of the character, and they do change the story quite a lot, actually. But it's good. I enjoy it. It pays homage to the original while keeping it fresh and keeping it different. It's like, you know how Full Metal Alchemist, there's two different ones. There's Brotherhood, and then there's the original.
Yes.
But they both kind of tell the same story.
Yes.
It's similar, but done they're two completely different ways. I'm not gonna lie. When I first watched it, I was really turned off by the changes. But then after a while, when you're following around episode 4, you're like, no, this is amazing. It's really well done, really well acted. The designs are very modernized, and it's basically about a planet that they try to colonize, and they accidentally crash onto this planet, and the survivors are building a civilization on this dead planet with the lore of the past of what happens, and you find out what Vash and his twin brother are actually the cause of the catalyst of the whole situation. So he's a very flawed hero. His brother is a very flawed villain, you know, but it's very well done. I can't really put my finger on how to tell you exactly the storyline, but it's basically two sides to the same coin. There's a mystery behind it where it has to do with the energy matrix that they that they have in their show, and then this dying Mad Max style world.
So, like, if I wanted to appeal to a general audience and try to convince them why anime is worth watching, the thing that I would tell people is that they do science fiction really well, but they also humanize it, because they always encase a lot of their stories in science fiction tropes, but it's always just about characters. And mind you, there's a lot of cultural things that you sort of have to overcome, because now that we've not been Americanizing things as much, people often have to deal with the more cultural aspects, like with the term of senpai, and the idea that there's different types of like hierarchical relationships in Japan that just do not exist here in America. For example, like a lot of anime deals with classroom settings, with young students in a classroom setting, and I asked, like, and I've read why that's the case, and it seems like during that time, not only is it the more formative of years, which is true of any culture, but specifically for Japan, it's the time where they have the most freedom, because when they go to college and then when they go out into the world, like for us, when we become adults, we talk about responsibilities, and that's true. We do grow up, but there's still a sense of freedom we have in terms of how we spend our money and our time. In Japan, that's not the case. They're still very much tied to hierarchical relationships, even at the work. So much so that your boss is truly your boss, even in your personal life. Yeah. They have opinions about everything you do, and if they find out you're living a certain way, they have every right to judge and control you, because the culture around it supports it. Not the law, though, because there's laws that have been changed, but they support it in terms of like peer pressure. Now, all this to say, like, for example, one interesting cultural aspect of anime is there's always going to be a classroom, and there's always going to be that one student who's a classroom manager, who seems like you would call him a teacher's pet here in America, but in Japan he's not necessarily the teacher's pet. His job is to be the adult to the kids, and that's a concept that is so weird, because sometimes I kind of wish there was one like that here in our school, but there isn't. Because these kids need like peer role models to help them.
Mikey, do you guys have teacher pets in your school? No, not anymore, right?
What do you mean?
There's always going to be a teacher's pet. What are you talking about? Like, there's always that one student that sucks up to the teacher, stays in class, helps out, and always like wants to be on the teacher's good side because they want the validation. It's a rite of passage. It's a tale as old as time.
I guess that's messed up.
But Okay, well, originally we talked about anime, you and I off air, because one of the things that struck me was sort of like the tropes. Like, what are the common tropes? And I'm glad that you brought up giant robots, because for me, it was the mecha robots that really sold me on anime. I love the anti-war stuff, but I wanted to understand, like, why was Japan so like interested in this stuff? And the thing that I've come to realize is that Japan, like most, I guess maybe most literature and art, is a sort of representation or an answer to questions that the society's asking in whole.
Would you say it's a circle?
It's a circle. It's a straight line. No, one of the things that I saw that anime does is they always ask this question, particularly in the old anime, is how can we turn a destructive force into something we can use, but how can it also get away from us? And I thought, well, that's an interesting question. But here's the thing, like, if you think of like Astro Boy, which came out in 1952, Astro Boy was a nuclear powered robot. Okay, but what was Japan dealing with 10 years prior? What happened to them?
Yeah.
They got bombed.
You dropped the bomb on me, baby.
Okay, so they had an atomic bomb dropped on them. Two of them, right? And that destructive force they had.
Fat Man and Little Boy?
I think so.
Yeah.
They had that destructive force, and the thing about Japan prior to those bombs, dude, they had to resolve to fight that war to the last man. People say we're going to fight to the last man, and they don't mean it.
They did.
Japan truly meant it. They were described by Carl. I forget his name, but he's the guy who does the hardcore history. I love his podcast. He described, based off of these books that he read when he did his whole history of World War II, he described Japan as they're like everybody else except more so, in the sense that they were going to be extraordinary, and they were going to fight to the very last man. They were going to kill and sacrifice everybody. Dude, they had all of their civilians like armed with like swords and weapons, that they said that if we get occupied and invaded, we're gonna fight to the last man. So when America started dropping those bombs, they were still ready to fight until the Japanese said, no, we surrender unequivocally. We surrender. Now anime sort of like, you see that. How many times do you see like people being beaten up to the very last minute, and they're still like, they're trembling and they're getting up against forces that they cannot control?
Vegeta, that's his whole thing. That's his whole
Goku,
thing.
all of them are.
Yeah, but Goku gets stronger every single time.
Yeah, that's true.
But Vegeta's always like, that's all his thing. That's what he does all the time. Or Naruto as well. He's like, hey, he does his shit, and and it's like, okay, fine, do it.
On a non-anime related course, but Japan, I mean, Godzilla. Like, I mean, and that is not a hidden thing that he is supposed to be representing the West in terms of like a nuclear power, because he was a product of like the nuclear testing that America was doing in the South Pacific.
And Bikini Atoll.
Yeah, and so
which is connected to SpongeBob.
Well, what does Godzilla do? The first thing he does is he invades Japan and destroys it indiscriminately, and the Japanese people have no control against it. But then over the years, like, they tame it. They learn how. Sometimes he works for them, so it's like a wishful. It's a wishful thinking of them. So, dude, I think we solved like the anime problem. It's a circle.
Remember that Godzilla anime that we watched that looked beautiful, but it was really boring?
Oh yeah, Netflix one.
Yeah. I hated those. I couldn't get into them.
That we really tried, because we love the Godzilla movies. So we were like, okay, let's go check this out. And they're beautiful looking. Did I fall asleep? I fell asleep, huh?
Yeah.
They were boring as hell. I mean, they were great looking, but they were boring as hell. Did you see the last Godzilla movie?
Yeah.
That was pretty good. Godzilla and Kong, X-Kong, when they get together. And then Monarch, the show was... Did you watch Monarch, the show?
No.
That thing is better than the movies.
Monarch, the show. Yeah. I don't even know what that is.
Me and Michael watched it. So Apple Plus came out with what Godzillaverse or Kongverse show called Monarch, which was about that foundation, Monarch Foundation, that was going after the kaijus and trying to protect them. And it was this mystery. They were trying to find one of the lead scientists the whole time. They were going around the globe and stuff. And you see a lot of different kaijus coming out. And you see it goes between the 1950s, 1970s to now.
Wow.
And it's a very well written show. It ties in all the movies all into one like beautiful little ribbon.
What movies?
And
The Japanese ones or the American ones?
The new American one.
Interesting.
The Skull Island. It does all of them. It actually starts on Skull Island. That's what Monarch is. So it basically just fleshes out the story was started on Skull Island, and it continued with the Godzilla, and then the King of Monsters, and Kong versus Godzilla, and then the new one. You know, like the whatever it's called, New Kingdom.
Right.
So it ties them all together, and it's prime, dude. I highly recommend it. I enjoyed that way more than I enjoy the movies.
That new storyline does start on Skull Island, huh?
Yeah, it starts in Skull Island. It doesn't count. That's the first one of the new MonsterVerse. Because we're not talking about the Matthew Broderick Godzilla. No one talks about that thing.
Well, you know that they tried. I think Japan has tried to. They tried to consolidate it in. Like there was a movie. I think
Final Wars.
Yeah,
it was in Final Wars. And it came out and got its ass beat, and I loved it. Final Wars is a masterpiece. I'm sorry, but I love Godzilla, and I've always followed it. I love all the little cheesy remakes, the Son of Godzilla, the King Ghidorah, even the Gamera stuff that's not even connected, but it is. I followed all the kaiju stuff. I loved it. I'm not as hardcore as some of my friends and stuff, but I followed it and I love it. But the fact that in that movie in Final Wars, the American Godzilla comes out and it made it lore part of the mythos. It was a cherry on top. It was good, and then it gets its ass beat. Is like nice, very nice.
Godzilla -0, is that what it's called?
Oh yeah. Godzilla
okay, so he's getting a sequel, from what I understand.
Yeah,
dude, that's gonna be so good.
Marvel has been in talks with the director too, by the way. Who knows for what, but he's in talks with the director.
Hopefully they let him do something good and they give him every opportunity to do it, because he's obviously onto something. He had a really great vision for that movie.
He also did the if I'm not, I might be mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he did the live action Attack on Titan movies. Those are his.
I haven't watched them.
I haven't either. They look great. I just never got around to it.
Well, because they're nothing like from what I understand, they're not really anything like the anime.
No,
because the guy.
By the way, we got to finish that Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
The anime or the movie?
The anime.
Okay.
That one's kind of getting ridiculous too, though. They're starting to turn into Titans.
It got ridiculous. It gets.
I love the hook I love the hook from the first season. And I tried going back and I just can't.
After the first season, it goes downhill. Yeah. It really does. I was up to season 3 or 4. And I was like, oh god, this is getting bad. Like it got bad. I gotta finish it though, but I'm not happy with the outcome of the story.
Yeah. So for those that don't know what Attack on Titan is, it was this anime. Honestly, I would argue that it was an anime that came out at a time when anime was like kind of becoming very bland, and it was formative. Like, I mean, mind you still had the, Naruto's and Hunter x Hunter. Those things were still happening, but those followed the typical shonen genres. And so those were always going to be around. But Attack on Titan, I mean, I'm not a anime like purist in this sense, but it felt special. I remember at the time it felt like something that other people who outside of the anime world were becoming aware of because of how interesting the hook was. So the hook of the show is that you have a society that lives within these walls, and these walls contain what's left of the human race because something happened that they hint at. And these giant, like human-looking giants that try to get in are constantly surrounding the place, and they want to eat people. But the thing that's more horrifying about it is that they don't eat people because they're hungry, because they don't digest people.
No,
when they eat them, they encase them in some liquid, and then they regurgitate them.
Yeah.
Because they don't have orifices. They don't poop. They don't pee. They don't have any orifices. They look like Ken and Barbie dolls, and in terms of their body physiques. But when they puke them out, they're just dead bodies. So it's so wasteful. Like, why? Yeah. And so it's horrifying that they eat people alive. It's really cool because there's this whole like medieval aspect, but the real cool thing is the way they try to fight them is these guys who have like swords, and they have like these hooks that shoot out of their sides, and they zoom around like the city, which again looks medieval, but they zoom around the city trying to fight these giants, and on one hand they almost look like they could be formidable to them until you see this giant, humongous, humongous giant that bigger than anything you've seen,
which has an impenetrable skin that the only place to get it is the nip of the back of the neck.
Yeah,
the only thing they could kill them off. Everything else just regenerates. But let me also talk about another great part about the actual swords themselves. They're not really swords. They're a cross between bike handles with really long box cutter knives blades on there, because they're like compartments, each one, like they break off, so they have these replacement razors on their side, so they have like, I think it's like 4 slots for 4 different blades, and they keep breaking as you use them, just like a razor blade box cutter. You know how when you see it and it has those, it's what is it, segregated or something?
Like it's serrated, so that it breaks off.
That's how the swords are as well. So that's the cool little feature where it's like you could see the what do you call it, the influence.
Yeah, and so Attack on Titan was visually cool. It had really great concept, and
the mystery behind it was great until they shit the bed.
Yeah, it sounds like
to be honest, they really did. You know, my working theory from season 1 was that this was like, it was supposed to be like they hint that it's the future, but if you look at everything they use, it's all very primitive and old. So I had this theory going into it without reading the manga or anything else, that the twist was going to be that this was actually not the future, but it was the past, and that we were actually the Titans themselves. Like that was
evolved from the Titans,
and then that was our past, how we evolved from those Titans, and that was a race that was before us.
See, well, that
would have been cooler than
that would have been cooler.
Came out with, man. I mean, I'm just not saying that because I'm not. I know I'm not the only one who thought of that. I know that theory is probably out there,
right?
But it pointed to that. I don't know.
That anime just kept on getting worse. And what part are we on with the freaking murderers running around?
There's murderers running around now?
Yeah, now there's like an evil, like a conspiracy behind the scenes, and there's these murderers that are going on trying to take out the scout division, and now the scouts have been like outlawed, and they're being framed for murder and all this stuff, and it's like, just fucking finish the show already.
That's why I stopped wanting to watch that, and it kind of got boring and bad.
Well, that's why I stopped before you. Like, I stopped and then I started up again with you and then I started watching them. Like, as I'm watching it with you again, I'm like, yeah, dude, season 1 is great. Season 1 is amazing. Season 2 starts getting okay, I'll still watch, but then it's like, it gets bad, and it gets worse. Wait till they get really outside the walls, when they're out there, when they get to the coastline. Yeah, I can't finish it. I want to finish it. I know I gotta finish it, but it's like, oh look, a nickel. Like I cannot finish that show.
That reminds me of Death Note too. How that had a great story and everything was amazing. He gets rid of the book, and after that, it gets boring.
Yeah, once they get Nero involved and all that, it gets stupid. And then the delete guy, delete. It's like, okay, it's got bad. Like I keep telling you, I got to go to my mom's house to get the live action movies. The 2 live action movies that they came out with are 10 times superior than the anime. And you'll enjoy them because they condense the whole series into 2 movies, and it's perfectly done. Same synopsis, same story, but it's perfectly done. You'll enjoy those. A lot of the live action anime stuff is pretty good now.
Yeah. It's gotten better. Like, what do you think of? What do you think of? What is it? The Alchemist?
Fullmetal Alchemist?
Yeah. What did you think of the live action?
I haven't watched it.
Okay. I heard that one's pretty good.
I heard it was pretty good, but actually, I think I did watch it. No, I did. I think I did watch it and I enjoyed it, but if I remember correctly, dude, because I think it was just so similar to the source material, to the original anime, that I'm like, there was no point to this. See, the Death Note, it trims the fat. It trims a lot of the filler out, and it's well done. There's other ones that are not done well. The Bleach one was okay. Actually, the Bleach one was pretty good. I enjoyed the Bleach one. There are other anime ones that really suck. The Death Note, the American version, was horrendous. The Netflix Death Note, terrible. One Piece Netflix, amazing.
Yeah,
I love that one. That was very well done.
Like, it's what's so interesting is I, in a million years, never thought that One Piece would ever be adaptable into like live action. It's too visually dependent on the way the animation looked, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, I thought it was amazing. Like, I really did enjoy it a lot. I like the fact that everyone is from a different culture. Everyone's a different race on it, like it should be. Like, on, hey man, you're going around the Great Blue, so yeah, you have to do it. There are other ones out there that I'm trying to think off the top of my head that I did not like. But the one that always keeps coming back is that Death Note. That was
Yeah, Death Note. Like I get that people
that was
don't
horrendous.
like it.
That was horrendous.
I'm. My problem is that I tend to give things passes like too easily.
Yeah, I do to some movies, but not when adaptations to other stuff. Then I get really like critical. You know,
When like Death Note is such a like I liked it. I was able to enjoy it, but it's not better than the anime. The anime is 1,000% better, and I really wish that they would do like a proper adaptation. Although, is the Japanese live action worth watching?
for Death Note.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay, I haven't watched the same thing with Gantz. I not watched the live action of it, but
There's 4 live Death Notes, but there's 3 that are amazing.
Okay.
I mean, no, I'm sorry, 2 that's amazing.
okay.
Don't watch the the last word, something like that. That one's not great, but it's because it's a prequel.
Right.
The first, the 2, Death Note 1 and 2, fucking chef's kiss too.
So let me ask you guys: have you guys watched Gantz, the anime? Did you watch all of it, or any
No,
of it, or one
no,
part of
no,
it?
no.
Okay, you would love it. I don't know why you haven't watched it. So the premise of Gantz is that the two people get killed while helping somebody on a rail station, and they end up being revived in a small little Japanese a small Japanese room, and in that room. In that room, you find other people, like some old guy and a Yakuza guy, and it turns out that they've all been recruited to fight aliens. But here's the thing: like, they never tell you why. At least not in the anime. You don't know why these people just randomly get put on into this world, and the violence of it is crazy. So, one of the episodes has like this little green onion kid. And all he keeps on saying is like, green onion for you, green onion. And he looks like this little kid, and yet they murder this kid like when they get zoomed in there. And all of a sudden this large I guess it's his father, comes out, and he says the same thing, except he says it in a deep voice, and he just goes to town on the humans. So suddenly you realize that like this show is violent and crazy. So I have to say that's an anime worth watching. I'm surprised that you guys haven't watched it. But what are you currently watching right now, Isaac?
I don't know. I haven't been watching anime. I haven't really been watching anything.
What was the last big one though you watched? Like, what was the one that kind of said like, forget it, I'm done with this?
I don't know. Probably Attack on Titan.
Yeah. Oh, dude, that's old. Okay, never mind. So let's take this time to talk smack about your dad, because your dad just walked away. Let's just say how much he sucks, right? Like, I mean, you're gonna be paying for therapy bills forever, aren't you? No, I'm just kidding, dude. You got a good dad, man. Like he brings you around and stuff. Let me ask you this: Are you guys gonna do anything like this coming up, like Christmas or anything? What's your guys' like traditions and stuff?
We usually just have it at our house with my grandma. So that's pretty much it.
What I think you should do, like for Christmas, is you guys all should make you guys all should like, hey Angel, welcome back. I was about to like tell them what to get you for Christmas, because that's how the show works when you're gone. We just suddenly veer off into like talks about Christmas and other things, and
I don't need anything but love.
No, honestly, Angel, like I'm clearly not a very good like solo host, so please don't leave me again. Don't leave me. No, that's okay. Don't go.
Here's a list.
Oh no, not list. I'm just kidding. Go for it.
Ghost in the Shell. I liked it. The live action.
I wanted it to be the second Akira. Everyone was trying to sell it like Akira. Do you remember?
Yeah.
At the time, like people were like Akira was such a like domestic hit, and I remember when Siskel and Ebert like talked about it, and they were calling it the next Blade Runner, and they just heaped tons of praise on it.
A live action Akira would be let me change that. Not a live action movie. A mini series of Akira would be breathtaking if done properly. That's just me. Bleach. I remember that one. Dragon Ball Evolution.
I never understood Bleach though. What's Bleach about?
Okay, Bleach is basically where there's such things as like Shinigamis are basically Grim Reapers in this world.
Yeah, well, just so like in Death Note, right?
Yeah, so there's these Grim Reapers who they're there to kill off or protect humans from the hollow or the heartless, basically. And Ichigo is this kid who, for some odd reason, has a connection. He's able to live in that world. Like he can sense ghosts. He can sense the paranormal, and he does all this like stuff. And he gets basically enlisted into the Shinigami without even wanting to be. That's the whole story behind it. Okay. And there's more to it, but I don't want to give it away.
Well, I mean, I want to watch it. But at the same time, it's just one that I'm kind of intimidated by that show. The same way I am with like JoJo's. And people have like
Bizarre Adventure, yeah.
Yeah, people have like recommended it. I've watched the first season, but truth be told, dude, I'm just not. I don't know, man. I can't do it. I just kind of want to skip to the third or fourth season where I hear it's really, really good, and I don't know how to do it.
I wouldn't. I would either watch it from the beginning or not at all.
Yeah, then I'm never watching it.
But no, this was fun, guys. I could keep going. Dragon Ball Evolution.
Well, I got a list too. I can just start naming out. Do you remember Jace and the Wheeled Warriors?
I love that one. I do love that one. It was kind of a weird Mad Max plant kind of car thing. It was pretty good.
Do you remember? I'm trying to remember which one it was. There's this one anime. The guy looked like Space Jesus, and he had like a laser sword that had a gun on it that looks a lot like the one that the what's the name from Star Wars Rebels has. Like his lightsaber that's like a gun.
Yeah.
Gun slash like lightsaber.
Are you talking about Brave Star? No, not Brave Star.
Nah, it's not Brave Star.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but yeah. I don't know. That's a lot of anime. We can do hours and hours and just do a whole episode on each one. But we're out of time.
We are out of time. You know, I want to just say that with the coming changes, you know, obviously Doyle not being here and stuff, you know, there's a sort of like ebb and flow that we've kind of lost. But these conversations we've been having been fun. I'm obviously hoping that we get better at like, you know, making the comedy come back and making the thing. So definitely want to invite more people onto the show. But I feel like that we still have something fun here happening, and I still want to continue it.
We'll have other guests coming in. Robert will be back. Mark will be back. You know, maybe Nikki with some caffeine. Of course, Isaac here joining us. Hopefully he gets more comfortable and he can talk more instead of just texting on his phone.
Yeah, but he's leaving.
Teenagers, gotta love them. I hate it myself. Anything to say, Isaac, before we go?
I don't think so.
Well, at least you tried. Enrique, anything else?
I don't think so. No, just kidding. No, I already said what I said, and this was fun.
I said what I said and I meant it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good times for everyone. Remember, follow us on Ouchcast.com for all things Ouch. Leave us a comment, smoke signal, something. Instagram, we have all that. We have a TikTok. We even have an X still.
Or if you see us on the street, high five.
No, not me. Don't ignore me. You don't know me. And remember, never make eye contact while eating Trans RZ. Okay, he left the room. I just want to see if he actually listens to the whole episode. I doubt it. He's not going to listen to this, but bye, everybody.